All right, let's talk about some of my gaming memories, starting with this guy right here, the Atari 2600. And this is the exact 2600 that I got as a kid for Christmas. I believe it was 1980 because this is a light sixer, and these were manufactured between 78 and 1980. And after that, it was the 4-switch model. But yeah, this is my original 2600 from back in the day. This is what started it all for me. Unfortunately, it doesn't work right now. I tried doing a audio video mod on it and I totally botched it, but hopefully one day I'll get it back working again. I remember that I was hitting my family pretty hard back then, Ralphie style, from A Christmas Story, about I really wanted a 2600 for Christmas. This was basically my Red Ryder BB gun. And I remember looking at an old catalog, and my grandmother asked me, "So which video game do you want?" I said, "Well, I want the Atari, of course. It's got the most games." And lo and behold, that's what I ended up getting for Christmas. That was one of the best Christmases that I ever had when it comes to video games. And this is my original combat cartridge from back in the day. Came in the box with this very 2600, and it's in pretty dang good shape. But this was the game that everybody wanted, Space Invaders. And again, this is the original Space Invaders game that I got for Christmas back in the day, the text label Space Invaders. Yeah, I'm pretty happy to have these two still in my collection. I mean, this is where it started for me, both of these games. It started an entire love of video games between combat and Space Invaders. Then I remember looping the game Video Pinball over and over again. You get to this spot in the game and you can just bounce the ball up and down over and over again and just rack up points forever. And I got pretty good at that, almost to the point where I kind of got bored just getting so many points in the game. But yeah, again, this is my original Video Pinball cartridge from back in the day. You know, when you're kids, you tend to do kind of stupid things. And one day I was over at a friend's house playing his Atari 2600, and he had just gotten the game Galaxian. And we were just all gaga over that game because, you know, that was a pretty popular game back in the day. I remember that when he wasn't looking, I just kind of like put it in my pocket and went home. And then about 20 minutes later, he showed up and said, "Can I have my Galaxian game back?" I feel really bad about that, but you know, again, that's just kind of stupid things that kids do. I mean, I was going to give it back to him. I just wanted to play it some more, and I took it home to play it. So, but yeah, I have my own copy now. And then I remember getting the game Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I couldn't figure out what the heck I was supposed to do in that game. It probably took me about 10 years before I finally finished it. That was a pretty exciting moment for me to beat that game. And I don't know, I think I must have read some tips in a magazine or something like that. This is my Raiders of the Lost Ark cartridge that I had signed at Free Play Florida this past year by Howard Scott Warshaw, the programmer of the game. That was another great memory of mine, is meeting Howard. Another pretty well-known dignitary that I got to meet at Free Play Florida was David Crane, and this is my original Pitfall 2 cartridge that I had him sign for me. And I told him this story about how I would play this game late at night, and I just couldn't stop playing it. It would just go over and over. I just kept playing and playing and playing, and I had a hard time sleeping because all I could see was Pitfall Harry in my head running around, jumping over, you know, scorpions and avoiding the condors and stuff like that. I could not sleep. It got in my head. Yeah, another great memory, meeting David Crane and having him sign my Pitfall 2 cartridge. This is the original one that I had that gave me the bad dreams. Well, they weren't really bad dreams. They were just difficulty in sleeping, but this is the game. Then I remember buying the game Warlords at I think it was a department store or something back in the day. And I didn't really want it for any other reason that I needed another paddle game, because all the Atari 2600s came with paddles, but I didn't have any games to play with it. And this was the game that I thought, that looks pretty cool. Little did I know that Warlords would be one of the greatest paddle games, if not the greatest paddle game of all time. Not to mention the fact that it's a great party game as well as a paddle game. So we got a party paddle game, Warlords. And then another game that I got at kind of a weird location was Defender. I actually picked this up at the Albertsons in Altamont Springs, which I think is still there. I just remember walking in through the glass doors, looking to the right, I think they were kind of behind the like the office area or something like that. I don't know, where you buy cigarettes and stuff like that. Yeah, they had Atari games in grocery stores back in the day, and that's where I ended up getting Defender at Albertsons in Altamont Springs. And then about, gosh, this has probably been 20 some years ago, I was helping my friend Chris move. I noticed he had a box of Atari stuff, and I looked in the box and there's this Atari 2600 there, and I'm like, hey Chris, can I have your 2600? He's like, oh yeah, sure. And he gave it to me. I used it this past Free Play Florida for the E.T. party that we had. I used it, and we played E.T. on this exact 2600. This is the Vader. Actually says Atari 2600 there on the front. But Chris, I still have it. It's hanging out with me here in the game room. Next, let's move on to some memories I had of the Atari 7800. Now, this is a 7800 that I bought for my nephew, and he played it for a couple of years, and then he said, Uncle Greg, do you want your 7800 back? I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. This isn't my original one. The original one's actually set up over there. I just remember how excited I was when the 7800 came out, and I just jumped on it right away because I had been kind of anticipating the release of the system for about 3 years. I remember seeing it in the magazine and how the games looked so much better than the 2600, and they talked about this Maria chip that was gonna have 1 million sprites on the screen at once, and how it was gonna be, just the best thing ever, of course. So it disappeared. I don't know what happened for a long time, and then it finally did come out after the Nintendo came out. Atari decided that, hey, Nintendo's doing really good. Let's go ahead and pull this 7800 out of mothballs and release it. So I jumped on it, and I think I got one of the earliest 7800s because that model actually has a little expansion adapter there on the side, whereas this one doesn't have the expansion adapter on the side. So I remember talking to my cousin, of course I'm probably 15 about this time, about the 7800, how I was so excited about getting it and everything, and I was telling him about pole position, and he just turned to me, and I'll never forget this, he said, "That show?" And I'm like, I don't quite understand that. Maybe it just didn't have enough stuff going on in the game for him, and so I just thought that was weird. And then one day I was traveling with my stepmother, and we were driving around kind of looking for stuff to do, and of course I'm always on the hunt for Atari games, and I thought that maybe they've got some Atari games here where she lives and my dad lives that I don't have. So we went to the store, and all I could find was Miss Pac-Man. This exact Miss Pac-Man cartridge, by the way. It was a game that I didn't have, so it didn't really bother me that, I'm getting Miss Pac-Man. And my stepmother asked me, she says, "Is that the game that you wanted, Miss Pac-Man?" I'm like, yeah, sure. Whatever game is good. I just wanted a new game for the 7800. Little did she know that, this is one of the best versions of Miss Pac-Man out there, programmed by the same people who programmed the arcade game, who also created the 7800 GCC. But yeah, this is my original Miss Pac-Man cartridge. I was about to say that pretty much all of my 7800 games were the original ones that I bought back in the day, but there was a time when, oh gosh, I forget which company was trying to blow out all their 7800 stock. It was like B&C Computer Vision, and they were just selling any 7800 game you wanted for $2 a piece. And I just bought every copy of every game that I didn't already have. And of course I ended up with Ninja Golf and Scrapyard Dog, just to name a couple of games. I mean, I probably have 30 games from them now, $60 for 30 games. I mean, how can you go wrong? And they're all sitting up there on the shelf, buy all the Jaguar stuff. Some of the boxes I had to collapse just because I've got too many 7800 games. But about a month after this $2 blowout sale, I noticed that the game prices started going up. So they kind of went up to like $5 and then $10. And that just goes to show you that if you see a good deal out there, you just got to jump on it while you can. And then after the 7800, the NES was gaining a lot of steam, and I just decided, you know what, this console is pretty special. I think I need to get an NES. So I used to go up to Walmart. Yeah, believe it or not, they had Walmart back in the day. I would go up there, and they had this whole section of video games. I mean, it was like a U-shaped section in the middle of the store. I would just go in there and just stare at the games that they had behind the glass cases all the time. And I kind of struck up a conversation with the lady clerk there, and I would come back multiple times to the same Walmart and talking to her about the NES games and the NES and how awesome it was and everything. Eventually what I ended up doing was buying the official Nintendo player's guide, this exact copy right here. I was buying it from her, and she asked me, she says, but you don't even have an NES, do you? I said, no, but I'll be getting one. And yeah, I just remember looking through this book, and the graphics just blew my mind back in the day, you know, the way that they look so close to the arcade. And I just love looking at this book. I just would look at it all the time. And if you're interested in checking out the book, I have a video that I cover just this book on, so check below for a link to that. But yeah, Pro Wrestling, Castlevania, Excite Bike, Arkanoid, Donkey Kong, Zelda, Spy Hunter. I mean, who wouldn't want an NES back in the day? The thing was huge. So then a couple of weeks later, I want to say I wanted to go back to the Walmart and get the NES, but either they didn't have them or something. So I ended up having to travel to another town nearby to get one. And I went into Kmart, not the Walmart that I'd been going into all this time, but I went into a Kmart. I walked out with an NES, the action set with the zapper, and I have the gray zapper, not the red zapper. So I have one of the early Nintendo Entertainment Systems. Yeah, it always surprises people when I show them the gray one. They're like, what? How'd you get a gray one? I'm like, well, this was the original color. Then they changed it after a while to red so that I guess they can comply with new laws or whatever about guns. So then in our town, we had a little video store. Surprisingly enough, they rented video games. I rented Willow because I love that movie. And it's kind of unusual for me to really like RPGs. Anyway, I had rented the game, and I think I beat it in either one weekend or 2 weekends. I may have gone back and re-rented it. That was the game I played instead of Zelda. I mean, for some reason I could never quite get into Zelda. And then surprisingly enough, another game that I rented from the video store was Dragon Warrior. I kept reading these stories about how amazing this game was in Japan, and it was like the greatest RPG ever. And I guess I fell for the marketing hype on that. But again, it was a game that I rented, played it over a weekend, and I had to take it back. And my character, I remember, was named Yo, because I just wanted to have the shortest possible name. I didn't care about the name, I just wanted to play through the game. So when I had to take it back, I left a little note in the box that said, please don't erase Yo, because in the Nintendo games they had batteries in them and you could save your game. Came back the next week and rented the game again, and fortunately Yo was still there, and was able to finish the game. It's just not the same now as it was back then, because when you're a kid, all you have is that game to play over the weekend. You don't have to worry about anything else. Now, I'm looking through the game room and I've got 13 different game systems in front of me. It's very distracting trying to sit down and really focus on a game now, but back then, that's all you had. Your Nintendo, the controller, and the game, and you were just zoned in on that game the whole time. And we rented a lot of games back in the day. I didn't really buy too many because, they were kind of expensive. They were kind of in the $50 range. I mean, shoot, the Atari games were $2 each. Nintendo games were $50, so I didn't buy a whole heck of a lot of those. But again, we just rented a lot of games. And my friend Les and I used to rent Contra a lot. And I mean, we would play that game, and I just felt like, we were Rambo, going through the jungle and shooting the bad guys and everything. And I just remember in the scenes where you're like running into the screen, attacking the base, and they would, throw the grenades at you. Les would just shout out, "Grenade!" And we'd just like duck and everything. It was so much fun just hanging out with him and playing all kinds of games. So yeah, I never ended up buying a copy of Contra because, I kind of got my fill from renting it. Later, I just decided that I really wanted to get a copy of Contra, but you couldn't get it anymore because it had all sold out. And it's not like you had eBay back in the day. You're pretty much screwed if you didn't get the game. So when Super Contra came out, man, I jumped on that. It's as good or better than the original Contra, and I played the heck out of this game over and over again. And one time, I actually beat the game without losing a life. I don't know how I did that. I've never been able to do it again, and I've tried. I was only able to do it one time. I wish I could have recorded it back then, but yeah, that was an amazing game. Heck, I don't need any Contra code. I played the whole game with just one life. So because I was a huge Atari fan, I kind of gravitated towards more arcade style games. When the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game came out, I didn't really have a whole lot of interest in that. It wasn't the arcade game. Why would I want to play that? Of course, when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 game came out for the NES, I had to get a copy. And again, this is my exact copy from back in the day. And this came with a coupon for a free pan pizza at Pizza Hut. Yes, I actually used it. I devoured my free Turtles pizza back in the day. and it was good. I liked it. But yeah, I used to beat this game on the regular as well, and this is a hard game to beat because there's like, what, 10 stages, I think, and they just go on and on and on forever. And you don't get a lot of continues, and you don't get a lot of lives, but you can beat it if you're extremely, extremely careful and learn how to do that jump slash. But yeah, I used to beat it, you know, pretty regularly. And then if we circle back to the renting of games thing, my friend Les and I also rented this game called Super Dodgeball at the video store a lot. We loved this game. We just loved whacking each other with the ball as hard as we possibly could. I haven't even had the box here. Years later, after Nintendo was kind of not a thing anymore and the video store was kind of closing up business, I went into the store, and lo and behold, there was this copy of Super Dodgeball there in the store for sale. The exact one that my friend Les and I used to play was for sale, and I bought it. And it's kind of interesting. On the back, you can see there's like a little void sticker right here. I don't even know what that's all about. And then on the box, they've got these numbers here. I'm not sure what the numbers were. Probably like an inventory number for the video store. But yeah, I'm happy to own the game that gave me so much joy playing back in the day and beating up my friends with. This game is great. If you ever get a chance to play Super Dodgeball, definitely check it out. I love the NES version over any other version. This is the best one for sure.